Hello, and welcome. My name is Claudia, and I am gratefully recovering in the program. I appreciate you being here on this talk on sponsorship. So I thought I would start by talking about what is a sponsor. And the way I see it, a sponsor is a little bit like a cheerleader, someone who has worked the steps, someone who has a sponsor, someone who has recovered and is now living a life where they are well, they have well-being, and they are passing the message in the way of step 12, where we reach out and share, and they're doing that to other addicts who are suffering. So that is what a sponsor is, and it would guide us and passing along what they got, not reinventing the wheel. So that is what a sponsor is. Why we get a sponsor? The reason for getting a sponsor is that when we come into the program, sometimes in a lot of pain, sometimes feeling really at the end of our wits, what we're facing is we need to change because there is that slogan, nothing changes if nothing changes. Excuse me. So in order to change, we need good orderly direction. We need someone who can help us because I don't know about you, but I have tried to change myself and it never works. I have too many blind spots and I can lie to myself and fall into denial. And the people in AA say that our best thinking got us here. And that is completely true for me. So with my own thinking, it's very hard for me to change. So that's why it's important to have a sponsor so that we can all change and feel better and pass the message along. Now, how does one go about getting a sponsor? And this is an interesting question. And for me in particular, I had what we call in the program the gift of desperation. Meaning I came in at the end. There was no hope for me. And when I heard people in meetings saying that they came into the program suicidal and feeling really bad and life had no meaning for them, I didn't believe them. I thought they were lying. And that was until it happened to me. Because when I came into the program, I really had lost everything. I had lost a family. I had lost the home in which I lived, so I was renting rooms, being a little bit of a homeless person in a way somehow. I had no money. I lost all my clothes. I lost my job, the work that I was doing, so I had nothing. I hit that brick wall at 150 miles an hour, and the worst part of it is that I hit it again, meaning I destroyed my life, not just once, but several times. So when I came crawling into the program, which I was lucky to find, I had what we call in the program the gift of desperation. It doesn't sound like a really good gift, but for me it was, because I was in such despair that finding a sponsor became for me priority number one. I was not going to go down this path again. I was not going to repeat this story. And I think there was a higher power that aligned with me and said, yes, I agree. And I declared it. I was like, this is happening. Forget it. I'm getting a sponsor. So I think having that determination, which also shows the willingness to work the program, is very important. And so what happened was a couple of weeks later, I heard a woman who said that she was willing to sponsor. And I went to her, and I literally put my hands on her hands, and I said, please take over my life because I don't know how to do this. And I didn't. I wanted to die. So what I did was I gave her the key to my life so that she could enter and clean the house. Or so I thought. What she did was have me clean the house with her help. And the way I understand it, that was for me the moment I took step one. Because step one, we admitted we were powerless over sex and love addiction and that life had become unmanageable. It's very easy to say, I can say, oh yeah, I'm powerless, my life is unmanageable. But the big book of AA says that faith without works avails us nothing, meaning we can talk all we want, and that will not get me recovery. Some people say going to meetings will get me fellowship and I'll feel better, I'll get relief. Going to meetings will get me relief. But working the steps is what gets me the recovery. So going to meetings for several years may help, but it's not recovery. Recovery happens through the steps. So I asked this person to please help me change so that I wouldn't repeat the same insane cycle that I was doing. And she said yes. And now I'm on step 11, and I went from there to now being well. And it's kind of funny to say that I'm happy. You know, it's like, should I say that? But the truth is my life is good. I have work that I like. I'm moving to a new location. It is not perfect, and there's a lot of challenges. They will always be there, but I have so many tools now to deal with any relationship, let alone relationships that are of the romantic type, which I'm working on as well with a plan, you know, because I can't do this alone. I just can't. That's the way I came from factory. So that was my step one, when I actually put together, I'm powerless and I need help and I'm asking for it. So with the gift of desperation being so strong, I was granted a sponsor, and I'm very grateful for that. Now, that's not the case for everyone, especially for people who dial through the phone lines, which are a lifeline, really, to have access to recovery through the phone. So there is a pamphlet on sponsorship at the website, SLAA, F as in Frank, W as in water, FWS as in Sam.org, SLAAFWS.org website is our main website. And this pamphlet, I think it costs $1.50 or something like that plus shipping, or you can get it at your local face-to-face. And the reason why I talk about it is because it has been written by so many people and checked again, and it's incredible the amount of information that it has in just the pamphlet on sponsorship. So I highly recommend reading it. And what it does is it gives you a couple of options of what can happen, how can I go about getting a sponsor. The first one is the one I just told you. Sometimes, you know, the gift of desperation makes you I need it, and somehow it happens. God gets in the mix. Sometimes God also gets in the mix, but it's not so easy. So the one thing I've seen is people asking, and this is what the pamphlet suggests, you can ask two people, because sometimes for some sponsors it's a lot of work to do, you know, to sponsor a person. So if you can find two people, then they can co-sponsor together, so that maybe, you know, you can do some with a little bit of the work with one, a little bit of the work with another. Depends also in how much you need help, how, you know, where you are in the situation level. But they are key because there are so many nuances to the program. So, you know, it can work. The other way that they say that it can happen is to find a peer. So you find someone who wants to work the steps also, doesn't have a sponsor, and you work it together. Now, this can work, but it also can not work. And the reason why it cannot work is that, say you have two people who have never worked the steps before, then it's a little bit like having the blind leading the blind, meaning if there is not one person who has gone through the recovery process, then it could be easy to fall into misunderstanding things, or say setting the bottom lines that are not the right ones. Bottom lines are the behaviors that we decide together with a sponsor that we're going to abstain from. So for example, for me, having no more sex outside of a committed relationship is a bottom line. But I came to that conclusion together with my sponsor. So if you have two people who have never worked the steps, maybe, you know, in that department, things could get not clear. Or if someone is on the anorexia side, they may need more top lines. And I think Tamara is going to make a talk on bottom lines and top lines, which I recommend. So there are many reasons why working with a peer can backfire. So I would just be careful. It goes on a case-by-case basis, and I am definitely not the authority, so you need to decide for yourself. The other way that I have found to work is, and I did this in another fellowship, is I asked for a temporary sponsor. So a temporary sponsor is a little bit of a win-win, because if someone agrees to be your temporary sponsor, but then you show that you're really working it, right, that you are doing the work and whatever they tell you, then this temporary sponsor is much more likely to see that this could be a success story for her or him. And so they may be able to keep you as a permanent sponsor. So I worked with this woman as a temporary sponsor, and I showed her, I did the work, I surrendered to the suggestions, and I'm still doing it. So, for example, in my phone, as a contact, it still says that she's my temporary sponsor, but I'm on step 8, which means I should probably change the contact and just say, she's my sponsor in this other fellowship. So the eagerness to work it's an important part if you try a sponsor out. And the thing is, now that I am a sponsor, I can see that when I sponsor others, if I see a person really wanting to do the work and doing it, I'm more likely to want to keep working with them. But if I see someone who doesn't, then in reality, that is a little bit like a waste of her time and my time, because I could be helping someone who's willing to recover, and she could continue on her journey and, I don't know, maybe touch bottom in a different way, or I don't know, she may not be ready for it. So it's important to be willing and ready to work it, I think, from my point of view. Now, the beautiful thing about sponsorship is how it comes together, how it becomes a circle, because after step 5, which I did with my sponsor, after running the inventory of all my resentments and talking to my sponsor about them in step 5, she said to me, now it's time for you to sponsor. And that was terrifying to me, because I had gotten used to my sponsor being somewhat of my mommy, sort of like, not really, but someone who was reparenting me and cheering for me and being there for me and giving me great suggestions. My life was turning around. I was beginning to feel a little bit of the promises that come in step 8, but I didn't want to sponsor others. That sounded like a lot of work. And so tentatively, I started. And I started saying in meetings, I'm available to sponsor. And then in another meeting, I would say it again, I'm available to sponsor. And if you notice, what I was saying is, I'm available. And that was the beginning of me actually being available to other people and to a romantic relationship should it come. So what happens is, when I start sponsoring, I learn what it's like to be intimate with another person and to go into a realm of a healthy or a kind, loving relationship with another person, which is the reason why I came in the program to begin with. You see that? It's like a full circle. It works in a magical way. Now I'm learning how to co-create a loving relationship rather than what I was doing before I came into the program. And my sponsor, who has a sponsor, she made sure that I had a sponsee. And when I had a sponsee and then I hit a wall in my dating world after step 9, she insisted that I get another sponsee. So what she was doing is gently and kindly moving me out of my head and into helping others. And that helps me. Now I have 2 sponsees, and they're wonderful women. And when they get to step 5, I am going to also gently invite them to sponsor. And what we do then is we carry the message. I am almost on step 12 now, and that's what I do now. I carry the message. And I'm no longer afraid to hit dial on the phone and talk to someone. I am no longer afraid to make a suggestion. I am no longer afraid of intimacy. And that is a big deal, because if I'm no longer afraid of intimacy in a relationship with a sponsee, then I'll probably won't be afraid of intimacy in a relationship with a man. And I may be able to build a relationship that is satisfying, kind, loving, and on and on. So that's the full circle of sponsorship and how it works and how beautiful it is. And on the subject of what about if I'm a woman, can I be sponsored by a man, or if I am a man, sponsor a woman? There are so many combinations here because there are so many sexual orientations. There is the issue of gender fluidity. SLAA has no opinion on any of these matters. You are who you are, and you know it. From my point of view, the suggestion would be to be sponsored by someone whom I'm not attracted to. Because for me, it was key to build intimacy with someone with whom sex was out of the question. So my sponsor is a woman, and I love her very much. We're very, we're very good friends, but I'm not attracted to her sexually. So I learned what it's like to have healthy intimacy with someone without having the sex part. So I highly recommend not being attracted to a sponsor. It's kind of, goes against the reason why we're here, goes against how we want to heal from doing exactly what we were doing before. So it may be better to have the training wheels on building intimacy with someone I'm not attracted to sexually. And it works very well. But there have been cases where it works. I don't know of one, but it could. I have resigned as Master of the Universe, so I don't know anything. Anything is possible with God, so I don't know. But from what I see, and in the way it happened to me, it had to be with someone I'm not sexually attracted to. So I only sponsor females, and my sponsor is a female. So I hope that helps. And finally, I think to conclude, there is the issue, what if I do all of this and I still don't find a sponsor? Because it can happen and it can get frustrating. You can go on every phone meeting and say in every share, I am looking for a sponsor. This is my phone number. Please, someone call me. You can say that in your share. You can stay on the after meetings on the phone and keep talking about it. You can get recovery partners' phone numbers and talk to them. Maybe one of them at some point becomes available to sponsor. Because, sponsees come and go, one drops, then a sponsor becomes available. You can do all of these things, and then it still doesn't happen. It happens sometimes. So it could be you're not ready to work the program, or it could be it's just not happening. That's also a reality. So if that is the case, what I would like to do here is say a prayer for you and for me. So I'm gonna go all prayer here. Okay, you ready? Okay. So, dear God, we have come together here, me as the speaker and the person who's listening as the listener, and we're grateful that you connected us so that we can talk about sponsorship. Now, the person who's listening is really looking and wanting to have a sponsor so that they can experience the relief and the healing and the happiness and the well-being that comes from working the steps. Please guide our spirits, guide our thinking, and guide where we go and who we talk to so that we may help the person who's listening find the right person to sponsor him or her. May we all heal so that we in turn can sponsor others and continue the healing cycle and help, which we believe is what you would like us to do as per the third step prayer. So please help us. We need your help. Thank you. Amen. So that's a little prayer. And you can make your own prayers. There is no authority on how we make prayers. And see what happens. Put it in the hand of higher power and put him or her to the test. Say, hey, I want a sponsor. It's not happening. Hello, what are you going to do about it? And put higher power to the test. I've done it. so you can see for yourself what the results are when we put higher power to the test. I am very grateful that you listened to this talk. I'm very happy that you're here, that you found this somewhat of a family, that we are together recovering, all of us. And I wish you the best on your recovery. I wish the relief comes really soon. And I hope to hear you and your experience, strength, and hope, and your shares at some telephone meeting or maybe a face-to-face meeting. God knows. It depends on how higher power lays things out. So be well. I wish you a speedy recovery, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye now.